Hey adventurers, so today is going to be another Poetry Thursday video. This is going to be part 4 of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. We'll get right into it. Now, New Year draws near, and the night passes. Day comes, driving the dark, as ordained by God. But wild weathers of the world awake in the land. Clouds cast keenly the cold upon earth, with bitter breath from the north biting the naked. Snow comes shivering sharp to shrivel the wild things. The whistling wind whirls from the heights, and drives every dale full of drifts very deep. Long the knight listens as he lies in his bed. Though he lays down his eyelids, very little he sleeps. At the crow of every cock he recalls well his tryst. Briskly he rose from his bed ere the break of day, for there was light from a lamp that illumined his chamber. He called to his chamberlain, who quickly him answered, and he bade him bring his byrnie and his beast saddle. The man got him up, and his gear fetched him, and garbed then Sir Gawain in great array. First he clad him in his clothes to keep out the cold, and after that in his harness that with heed had been tended. Both his pauncer and his plates polished all brightly, the rings rid of the rust on his rich byrnie. All was neat as if new, and the knight him thanked with delight. He put on every piece, all burnished well and bright, most gallant from here to Greece, for his courser called the knight. While the proudest of his apparel he put on himself, his coat armor, with a cognizance of the clear symbol, upon velvet environed with virtuous gems, all bound and braided about it with broidered seams, and with fine furs lined wondrous fairly within. Yet he overlooked not the lace that the lady had given him, that Gawain forgot not of his own good thinking. When he had belted his brand upon his buxom haunches, he twined the love-token twice then about him, and swiftly he swathed it sweetly about his waist, that girdle of green silk, and gallant it looked, upon the royal red cloth that was rich to behold. But he wore not for worth nor for wealth this girdle, not for pride and independence, though polished they were, not though the glittering gold there gleamed at the ends, but so that himself he might save when suffer he must abide bane without debating it, with blade or with brand of war. When arrayed the knight so bold came out before the door, to all that high household great thanks he gave once more. Now Gringolet was groomed, the great horse and high, who had been lodged to his liking and loyally tended. Fain to gallop was that gallant horse for his good fettle. His master to him came and marked well his coat, and said, Now silently myself I swear on my troth. There is a company in this castle that is careful to honour. Their lord that them leads, may his lot be joyful. Their beloved lady in life may delight befall her. If they out of charity thus cherish a guest, upholding their house in honour, may he them reward, that upholds heaven on high, and all you too. And if life a little longer I might lead upon the earth, I would give you some guerdon gladly were I able. Then he steps in the stirrup and strides on his horse. His shield his man showed him, and on his shoulder he slung it. Gringolet he goaded with his gilded heels, and he plunged forth on the pavement, and prancing no more, stood there. Ready now was his squire to ride, that his helm and lance would bear. Christ keep this castle, he cried, and wished it fortune fair. The bridge was brought down, and the broad gates then unbarred, and swung back upon both hinges. The brave man blessed himself, and the boards crossing bade the porter uprise, who before the prince kneeling gave him, Good day, Sir Gawain, and God save you. Then he went on his way with the one man only, to guide him as he goes to that grievous place, where he is due to endure the dolorous blow. They go by thick banks, and by braes where branches are bare. They climb along cliffs where clingeth the cold. The heavens are lifted high, but under them evilly. Mist hangs moist on the moor, melts on the mountains. Every hill has a hat, a mist mantle huge. Brooks break and boil on braes all about. Bright bubbles on their banks where they bustle downwards. Very wild through the woods is the way they must take, until soon comes the season when the sun rises that day. On the high hill they abode, white snow beside them lay, the man that by him rode, there bade his master stay. For so I have taken you, sir, this time, and now you are near to that noted place, that you have inquired and questioned so curiously after. But I will announce now the truth, since you are known to me, and you are a lord in this life that I love greatly. If you would follow my advice, you would fare better. The place that you pass to, men perilous hold it. The worst wight in the world in that waste dwelleth, for he is stout and stern, and to strike he delights, and he mightier than any man upon middle earth is, and his body is bigger than the 4 best men that are in Arthur's house, either Hestor or others. All goes as he chooses to the green chapel. No one passes by that place so proud in his arms, that he hews not to death by dint of his hand. For he is a man monstrous, and mercy he knows not. For be it a churl or a chaplain that by the chapel rideth, a monk or a mass priest or any man besides, he would as soon have him slain as himself go alive. And so I say to you, as sure as you sit in your saddle, if you come there, you'll be killed, if the carle has his way. Trust me, that is true, though you had 20 lives to yield. Here there has dwelt now long, and stirred much strife on the field. Against his stroke so strong, yourself you cannot shield. And so, good Gawain, now go another way, and let the man alone, for the love of God, sir. Come to some other country, and there may Christ keep you. And I shall haste me home again, and on my honour I promise, that I swear will by God and all his gracious saints, so help me God and the Halidom, and other oaths aplenty, that I will keep safe your secret, and say not a word, that ever you fain were to flee for any foe that I knew of. Gramercy, quoth Gawain, and regretfully answered, Well, man, I wish thee, who wishest me good, and keep safe my secret, I am certain thou wouldst. But however heedfully thou hid it, if I here departed, fain in fear now to flee in the fashion thou speakest, I should a knight coward be. I could not be excused. Noy, I'll fare the chapel, whatever chance may befall, and have such words with that wild man as my wish is to say. Come fair or come foul, as fate will allot me there, he may be a fearsome knave, to tame and club may bear, but his servants true to save, the Lord can well prepare. Marry, quoth the other man, now thou makest it so clear, that thou wishest thine own bane to bring on thyself, and to lose thy life hast a liking. To delay thee I care not. Have here thy helm on thy head, thy spear in thy hand, and ride down by yon rock side, where runs this same track, till thou art brought to the bottom of the baleful valley. A little to thy left hand, then look o'er the green, and thou wilt see on the slope the self-same chapel, and the great man and grim on ground that it keeps. Now farewell in God's name, Gawain the noble. For all the gold in the world I would not go with thee, nor bear thee fellowship through this forest 1 foot further. With that, his bridle towards the wood, back the man turneth, hits his horse with his heels as hard as he can, gallops on the greenway, and the good knight there leaves alone. Quoth Gawain, By God on high, I will neither grieve nor groan. With God's will I comply, whose protection I do own. Then he put spurs to Gringolet, and espying the track, thrust in along a bank by the thicket's border, rode down the rough brae right to the valley, and then he gazed all about, a grim place he thought it, and saw no sign of shelter on any side at all, only high hillsides sheer upon either hand, and notched-knuckled crags with gnarled boulders. The very skies by the peaks were scraped, it appeared. Then he halted and held in his horse for the time, and changed off his front to the chapel to find. Such on no side he saw, as seemed to him strange, save a mound, as it might be near the marge of a green. A worn barrow on a brae by the brink of a water, beside falls in a flood that was flowing down. The burn bubbled therein, as if boiling it were. He urged on his horse then, and came up to the mound, there lightly alit, and lashed to a tree. His reins with a rough branch rightly secured them. Then he went to the barrow, and about it he walked, debating in his mind what might the thing be. It had a hole on the end at either side, and with grass and green patches was grown all over, and was all hollow within, naught but an old cavern, or a cleft in an old crag, he could not it name aright. "Can this be the Green Chapel, O Lord?" said the gentle knight. "Here the devil might say, I ween, his matins about midnight." "On my word," quoth Gawain, "'tis a wilderness here. This oratory looks evil. With herbs overgrown, it fits well that fellow transformed into green, to follow here his devotions in the devil's fashion. Now I feel in my 5 wits the fiend, 'tis himself, that has trapped me with the tryst to destroy me here. This is a chapel of mischance, the church most accursed that ever I entered, evil betide it." With high helm on his head, his lance in his hand, he roams up to the roof of that rough dwelling. Then he heard from a high hill in a hard rock wall, beyond the stream, on a steep and sudden startling noise, how it clattered in the cliff, as if to cleave it asunder, as if one upon the grindstone were grinding a scythe. How it whirred and it rasped as water in a mill race. How it rushed and it rang, rueful to hearken. Then, "By God," quoth Gawain, "I guess this ado is meant for my honour, meetly to hail me as knight, as God wills, waylay. That helps me not a mite, my life though down I lay, no noise can me affright." Then clearly the knight there called out loud, "Who is master in this place to meet me at tryst? For now 'tis good Gawain on ground that here walks. If any aught hath to ask, let him hasten to me, either now or else never, his need to further." "Stay," said one standing above on the steep o'er his head, "and thou shalt get in good time what to give thee I vowed." Still with that rasping and racket he rushed on a while, and went back to his wedding, till he wished to descend. And then he climbed past a crag, and came from a hole, hurtling out of a hid nook with a horrible weapon, a Danish axe newly dressed, the dint to return, with cruel cutting edge curved along the handle, filed on a whetstone, and 4 feet in width. 'Twas no less along its lace of luminous hue, and the great man in green still guised as before, his locks and long beard, his legs and his face, save that firm on his feet he fared on the ground, steadied the haft on the stones, and stalked beside it. When he walked to the water, where he wade would not, he hopped over on his axe and haughtily strode, fierce and fell on the field where far all about lay snow. Sir Gawain the man met there, neither bent nor bowed he low. The other said, "Now, sirrah fair, true at tryst thee I know." "Gawain," said the green man, "may God keep thee. On my word, sir, I welcome thee with a will to my place. And thou hast timed thy travels as trusty men should, and thou hast forgotten not the engagement agreed on between us. At this time gone a 12-month thou took'st thy allowance, and I should now this new year nimbly repay thee. And we are in this valley now verily on our own. There are no people to part us, we can play as we like. Have thine helm off thy head, and have here thy pay. Bandy me no more debate than I brought before thee, when thou didst sweep off my head with one swipe only." "Nay," quoth Gawain, "by God that gave me my soul, I shall grudge thee not a grain any grief that follows. Only restrain thee to one stroke, and still shall I stand, and offer thee no hindrance to act as thou likest right here." With a nod of his neck he bowed, let bare the flesh appear. He would not by dread be cowed, no sign he gave of fear. Then the great man in green gladly prepared him, gathered up his grim tool, there Gawain to smite. With all the lust in his limbs aloft he heaved it, shaped as mighty a stroke as if he meant to destroy him, had it driving come down as dour as he aimed it. Under his dent would have died the most doughty man ever. But Gawain on this gisarm then glanced to one side, as down it came gliding on the green there to end him, and he shrank a little with his shoulders at the sharp iron. With the jolt the other man jerked back the blade, and reproved then the prince, proudly him taunting. "Thou'rt not Gawain," said the green man, "who is so good reported, who never flinched from any foes on fell or in dale, and now thou fleest in fear. ere thou feelest a hurt? Of such cowardice that night I ne'er had accused, neither blanched I nor backed when thy blow, sir, thou aimedst, nor uttered any cavil in the court of King Arthur. My head flew to my feet, and yet fled I never. But thou, ere thou hast any hurt, in thy heart quailest, and so the nobler knight to be named I deserve therefore. I blenched once, Gawain said, and I will do so no more. But if on the floor now falls my head, I cannot restore. But get busy, I beg, sir, and bring me to the point. Deal me my destiny, and do it out of hand. For I shall stand from thee a stroke, and stir not again till thine axe hath hit me. Have here my word on it. Have at thee, then, said the other, and heaved it aloft, and watched him as wrathfully as if he were wild with rage. He made at him a mighty aim, but the man he touched not, holding back hastily his hand, ere hurt it might do. Gawain warily awaited it, and winced with no limb, but stood as still as a stone, or the stump of a tree, that with 100 ravelled roots in rocks it embedded. So, now thou hast thy heart whole, a hit I must make. May the high order now keep thee that Arthur gave thee, and guard thy gullet as this go, if it can gain thee that. Angrily with ire then answered Sir Gawain, Why, lash away, thou lusty man, too long dost thou threaten. 'Tis thy heart, methinks, in thee that now quaileth. In faith, said the fellow, so fiercely thou speakest, I no longer will linger, delaying thy errand right now. Then to strike he took his stance, and grimaced with lip and brow. He that of rescue saw no chance, was little pleased, I trow. Lightly his weapon he lifted, and let it down neatly, with the bent horn of the blade towards the neck that was bare. Though he hewed with a hammer swung, he hurt him no more than to snick him on one side and sever the skin. Through the fair fat sank the edge, and the flesh entered, so that the shining blood o'er his shoulders was shed on the earth. And when the good knight saw the gore that gleamed on the snow, he sprang out with spurning feet, a spear's length and more. In haste caught his helm, and on his head cast it. Under his fair shield he shot with a shake of his shoulders, brandishing his bright sword, and boldly he spake. Never since he, as man-child of his mother was born, was he ever on this earth half so happy a man. Have done, sir, with thy dints, now deal me no more. I have stood from thee a stroke without strife on this spot, and if thou offerest me another, I shall answer thee promptly, and give as good again, and as grim, be assured, shall pay. But one stroke here's my due, as the covenant clear did say, that in Arthur's halls we drew. And so, good sir, now stay. From him the other stood off, and on his axe rested, held the haft to the ground, and on the head leaning, gazed at the good knight, as on the green he there strode. To see him standing so stout, so stern there and fearless, armed and unafraid, his heart it well pleased. Then merrily he spoke with a mighty voice, and loudly it rang as to that lord he said, Fearless knight on this field, so fierce do not be. No man here unmannerly hath thee maltreated, nor aught given thee not granted by agreement at court. A hack I thee vowed, and thou'st had it, so hold thee content. I remit thee the remnants of all rights I might claim. If I brisker had been, a buffet it may be, I could have handed thee more harshly, and harm could have done thee. First I menaced thee in play with no more than a trial, and clove thee with no cleft. I had a claim to the faint, for the first pact we affirmed on the evening, and thou fairly and unfailing didst faith with me keep. All thy gains thou me gavest, as good man ought. The other trial for the morning man I tendered thee, when thou kissedst my comely wife, and the kisses didst render. For the two here I offered only two harmless feints to make. The true shall truly repay, for no peril thee need he quake. Thou didst fail on the third day, and so that tap now take. For it is my weed that thou wearest, that very woven girdle. My own wife it worded thee, I wot well indeed. Now I am aware of thy kisses, and thy courteous way, and thy wooing by my wife. I worked that myself. I sent her to test thee, and thou seemst to me truly the fair knight most faultless that e'er foot set on earth. As a pearl, than white peace is prized more highly, so is Gawain, in good faith, than other gallant knights. But in this you lacked, sir, a little, and of loyalty came short. But that was for no artful wickedness, not for wooing either, but because you loved your own life. The less do I blame you. The other stern knight, in his study, then stood a long while, in such grief and disgust he had grew in his heart. All the blood from his breast in his blush mingled, and he shrank into himself with shame at that speech. The first words on that field that he found then to say were, "Cursed be ye, coveting and cowardice also, and you is vileness and vice that virtue destroyeth." He took then the treacherous thing, and untying the knot, fiercely flung he the belt at the feet of the knight. "See, there is the falsifier, and foul be its fate. Through care for thy blow cowardice brought me to consent to coveting, my true kind to forsake, which is free hand and faithful word that are fitting to knights. Now I am faulty and false, who afraid have been ever of treachery and troth breach. The two now my curse may bear. I confess, sir, here's to you, all faulty has been my fare. Let me gain your grace anew, and after I will beware." Then the other man laughed and lightly answered, "I hold it healed beyond doubt, the harm that I had. Thou hast confessed thee so clean and acknowledged thine errors, and hast the penance plain to see from the point of my blade, that I hold thee purged of that debt, made as pure and as clean, as thou hadst done no ill deed since the day thou wert born. And I give thee, sir, the girdle with gold at its hems, for it is green like my gown. So, Sir Gawain, you may think of this our contest, when in the throng thou walkest, among princes and high praise. 'Twill be a plain reminder of the chance of the green chapel between chivalrous knights. And now you shall in this new year come anon to my house, and in our revels the rest of this rich season shall go." The lord pressed him hard to wind, and said, "My wife, I know, we soon shall make your friend, who was your bitter foe." "Nay, forsooth," the knight said, and seized then his helm, and duly it doffed, and the doughty man thanked. "I have lingered too long, may your life now be blessed, and he promptly repay you who apportions all honours. And give my regards to her grace, your goodly consort, both to her and to the other, to mine honoured ladies, who thus their servant with their designs have subtly beguiled. But no marvel, as if mad be a fool, and by the wiles of women to woe be brought. For even so Adam by one on earth was beguiled, and Solomon by several, and to Samson moreover his doom by Delilah was dealt, and David was after blinded by Bathsheba, and he bitterly suffered. Now if these came to grief through their guile, again 'twould be vast, to love them well and believe them not, if it lay in man's power. Since these were aforetime the fairest, by fortune most blessed, eminent among them, all the others who under heaven bemused were too, and all of them were betrayed by women that they knew. Though a fool I now am made, some excuse I think my due. But for your girdle, quoth Gawain, may God repay you, that I will gain with good will, not for the gold so joyous of the cincture, nor the silk, nor the swinging pendants, nor for wealth, nor for worth, nor for workmanship fine, but as a token of my trespass I shall turn to it often, when I ride in renown ruefully recalling the failure and the frailty of the flesh so perverse, so tender, so ready to take taints of defilement. And thus, when pride my heart pricks for prowess in arms, one look at this Lovelace shall lowlier make it. But one thing I would pray you, if it displeaseth you not, since you are the lord of yonder land, where I lodged for a while, in your house and in honour, may he you reward, who upholdeth the heavens and on high sitteth. How do you announce your true name, and then nothing further?" "That I will tell thee truly," then returned the other. "But alack, the haut desert, hereabouts I am called, who thus have been enchanted and changed in my hue by the might of Morgan le Fay, that in my mansion dwelleth, and by cunning of lore and crafts well learned, the magic arts of Merlin she many hath mastered, for deeply in dear love she dealt on a time with that accomplished clerk, as at Camelot runs the fame, and Morgan the goddess is therefore now her name. None power and pride possess, too high for her to tame. She made me go in this guise to your goodly court, and to put its pride to the proof, if the report were true that runs of the great renown of the Round Table, she put this magic upon me to deprive you of your wits, in hope Guinevere to hurt, that she in horror might die aghast at the glamoury that gruesomely spake, with its head in its hand before the high table. She it is that is at home, that ancient lady. She is indeed thine own aunt, Arthur's half-sister, daughter of the Duchess of Tintagel, on whom doty Sir Uther after begat Arthur, who in honour is now. Therefore I urge thee in earnest, sir, to thine aunt return. In my hall make merry, my household thee loveth, and I wish thee as well upon my word, sir knight, as any that go under God, for thy great loyalty. But he denied him with a, Nay, by no means I will. They clasp then, and kiss, and to the care give each other, of the Prince of Paradise, and so part on that field so cold. To the king's court on courser keen, then hastened Gawain the bold, and the knight in the glittering green, to ways of his own did hold. Wild ways in the world Gawain now rideth on Gringolet. By the grace of God he still lived. Oft in house he was harboured, and lay oft in the open. Oft vanquished his foe in adventures as he fared, which I intend not this time in my tale to recount. The hurt was healed that he had in his neck, and the bright-hued belt he bore now about it, obliquely like a baldric bound at his side. Under his left arm with a knot that lace was fastened, to betoken he had been detected in a taint of a fault. And so at last he came to the court again safely. Delight there was awakened, when the lords were aware that good Gawain had returned. Glad news they thought it. The king kissed the knight and the queen also, and then in turn many a true knight that attended to greet him. About his quest they inquire, and he recounts all the marvels, declares all the hardships and care that he had, what chanced at the chapel, what cheer made the knight, the love of the lady and the lace at the last, this notch in his neck, naked he showed them, that he had for his dishonesty, from the hands of the knight in blame. It was torment to tell the truth, in his face the blood did flame, he groaned for grief and ruth, when he showed it to his shame. Lo, lord, he said at last, and the lace handled, this is the band, for this rebuke I bear in my neck. This is the grief and disgrace I have got for myself, from the covetousness and cowardice that o'ercame me there. This is the token of the troth breached, that I am detected in. And needs must I wear it while in this world I remain, for a man may cover his blemish, but unbind it he cannot. For where once 'tis applied, thence part will it never. The king comforted the knight, and all the court also laughed loudly thereat, and this law made in mirth. The lords and ladies that whoso belonged to the table, every knight of the brotherhood a baldric should have, a band of bright green obliquely about him, and this for the love of that knight as a livery should wear. For that was reckoned the distinction of the Round Table, and honour was his that had it evermore after. As it is written in the best of the books of romance, thus in Arthur his days happened this marvel, as the book of the Brute beareth us witness. Since Brutus, the bold knight, to Britain came first, after the siege and the assault had ceased at Troy, I trow, many a marvel such before has happened here ere now. To his bliss us bring who bore the crown of thorns on brow. Amen. Oni soit qui mal pense. That is the end of Sir Gawain in the Green Knight, as translated by J.R.R. Tolkien. There's, of course, many other translations of this poem, as well as you can still find the original Middle English version of it. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post these every Monday and Thursday, and we will be back to our more normal schedule with videos in the future in terms of what types of videos they will be. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We will see you guys again soon. Stay warm.